get after it. OutKick 360 is back across the OutKick network alongside Chad Withrow and Paul Kuharski. I'm Jonathan Hutton, Lance Lee, Jacob Swanson, Emma Notestein. David Reed is the chairman of the board. They all make the show happen for us each and every day. If you're watching on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, we hope you'll like, subscribe, share the posts. We certainly need that. We appreciate you joining us live. If you're watching later in the show, we certainly hope you'll retweet all of the replay links. And if you're listening in Fox Sports Knoxville, hit us up on Twitter at OutKick360. Gentlemen, good morning.
Good morning. I was so inspired by the discussion of my shoes yesterday that I wore them again
There
today.
you go.
Yep. And I'll wear them every day from here on out until I wear them out. Paul, how are you?
I moved on to boots today.
Nice.
Now that I have a nice pair of boots, every time it rains, immediately I'm in the boots because, unlike my previous pair of boots, these actually were.
They're actually waterproof.
Yeah, they're actually waterproof. I had a miserable night because it was stormy, and it wasn't the sun this time that had a huge problem. It was the dog.
Oh.
This is Finley here, and Finley hated this. And I was going between this thing where I was sympathetic, oh, this poor guy's having a tough time, to, damn it, leave me alone, I want to sleep. So I really struggled between the sympathetic dad dog and the guy who wanted to sleep. I know Chad would say, just shoot him.
Yeah.
Chad hates dogs.
Do away with the dog.
Put this dog where it belongs.
As I went to bed last night, the storm was about to hit. And so as I got into bed, I told Claire, I said, hey, Brody, our dog, he's about to get up in the bed because he freaks out with the sound of thunder. And sure enough, like 2 minutes later, boom, he was waking everyone up.
I was on the ground with him. I mean, he was shaking and panting hysterically. Teresa, with her back problems, is often on a couch where she finds the most comfort. I was worried about him to the degree that I went downstairs to her, and I'm like, he's freaked out beyond the normal Finley panic level. And he settled down a little bit, and I'm like, you good? She's like, yeah, I'm going to go check on Simon.
My daughter's teething right now, so I don't think it was a storm issue as much as maybe she was awoken by the storm and teeth were hurting and started making noise. And my wife has a much higher tolerance for her making noise over and over than I do. So I'm laying there, I'm like, do you want me to go get her and just put her in bed here so she'll maybe go back to sleep? And it's just, there's a lot of, we'll see what happens. And I'm thinking, I'm hearing this and I'm going to be awake. Let's make the call at some point to put her in bed or put her to sleep.
She's a heavier sleeper. She's a heavier sleeper.
Just a little bit of rum on the gums always helps. A little bit of
quite
bourbon.
frankly, another thing that left me somewhat.
She's a great sleeper normally. It's very rare that she doesn't sleep through the night.
Sleepless and tossy-turny is the end of Michigan's performance, where they can't hit anything. They missed 8 consecutive shots, including 1, 2, 3, 4 layups. And here's a hint for you, Juwan Howard and the Wolverines. If you can't hit at the rim, it doesn't mean you have to shoot all threes. And down 2, you're allowed to shoot 2s. I don't understand why. Like, is this kind of that baseball theory that at home you play for the win and on the road you play for the tie in late innings? I don't understand why you have to shoot 3s. They had 2 chances there to tie the game. I understand you're missing layups, but how about you go hit a layup? How about with a set piece coming, what would they have, 3.2 at the end or whatever it is, and then you had 0.5? Why does it have to be a three-pointer? Why can't you draw up something to get a shot with some proximity? I hated the way Michigan played the end of that game. I can't understand, and I'm going to get grief for this. For the longest time, I appreciate women's college basketball. I really do. The reason I appreciate it, I'll get grief for. I think it's a more relatable game because it's played largely under the rim, and most human beings play basketball under the rim.
It's played completely under the rim.
Right. So it's a game that looks like something I can relate to, you know?
Including my missed layups.
Right.
How many did the Lady Vols have in their
They
game?
were 11 for 29 from layup.
Well, they miss a lot of close shots, which is where it needs to get better and where the distance, I think, is between the UConns of the world who also miss close shots, and the 64th team in the tournament. There's a lot more space still in women's college basketball, I believe. But the men's game, to me, in this tournament, with the amount of missed layups, looks like sometimes the women's game. And I don't see guys going up and finishing at the rim the way they should in traffic. And when Michigan's missing 4 layups in the last 5 minutes of a game, I'm infuriated.
Michigan for the season shot well over 50% from 3. That's why they shoot. That's why they shoot. 3.
Again, though, we talked about this the other day. It's fine over the course of a game that you're shooting 50% from 3 in the course of a game, but at the end of a game, a 50-50 shot is not good enough if you can get a 90% shot from under the basket if you're shooting it like you should be shooting.
Well, they didn't take any bad shots. Like, they just missed.
Yeah, how are you missing
those threes were open, so I have no problem with them taking the three.
How are you missing the layups?
I don't know that they missed a ton of layups. I mean, they missed shots down low, but Hunter Dickinson was well defended on a lot of those shots. He was just missed. There was maybe one that I recall that it was maybe 4 or 5 feet out. It was a bit of an awkward angle that was pretty open off the glass that just missed, that rimmed out.
Maybe I'm misnaming them.
They're missing shots around the basket.
Yeah, they're 4 feet and in. Those
I would have
shots.
gone to Dickinson and tried to get something going where you get it into the big man, right?
Yeah, and he was 6 of 10, 5 of 10.
Yeah, he had missed a few, or part of that 0 for 8 stretch to end the game was at least 2 or 3 by him. So he was not hitting when they got it down low to him. They weren't calling fouls at that point. So, I mean, I can understand if you get an open 3, you take it, and it's frustrating. But I think when we're talking about the women's game, and I will say this about women's basketball, and I've said it a lot, the product is bad right now. And it's bad because while the athleticism has gotten better, the skill level has gone down. And I would say the same for the men's game for years. I think it's coming back around. You're seeing the percentages now of free throws going way up. 2 of the best free throw shooting teams of all time in Colorado and Oral Roberts this year. 3-point percentage going up.
That's encouraging.
I think the skill level of the men's game is rising, and it's catching up with the athleticism. I think as the women's game got more athletic, you see a lot of the women trying to do things that they see in the men's game, and it leads to 11 for 29 from layup in a game because you're taking a lot of crazy shots. And again, while I think the women's basketball game is more athletic, I think the skill level has gone down and it's made the product worse. Starting to get a little bit better in the men's game, but how frustrating for Michigan. You're one of the top 10 offenses in the country, and you run into this, and you look at UCLA and the way Mick Cronin coaches, that defensive style, slow it down. The Pac-12 knows what they're getting. They figured it out. They lost their last 4 games in the Pac-12. That's why they were in the play-in game. They finished 5th in the conference. But when you get those one-off games that's not accustomed to that style, you can go on a run like this. So this was a dangerous NCAA tournament team that no one was factoring in because of the way they finished the season. But when you get out of your conference sometimes and you're playing teams not accustomed to that style, it can lead to a run like this.
Let me be clear quickly. I'm calling them layups because what Pete Thamel tweeted out was a screenshot of their last 8 shots as they're listed in the official play-by-play, I guess, where it categorizes them as jumpers, layups, or 3-pointers, and they're categorized as layups. So officially, they're categorized as layups. The other thing I had a big problem with, the first 3 that we're talking about at the end, from the top, the guy got the rebound, and he still had plenty of time, and he threw up, like I think he felt like he didn't have a good sense of the clock. And he kind of caught the layup falling to the left and threw something up crazy where he could have brought the ball down and, again, gone up strong in a way. There's not enough going up strong to me and getting yourself to the line, which is where their only 2 points in that last stretch came from. Get yourself to the line or try to get yourself to the line.
Michigan didn't lose for lack of possessions. I mean, they had plenty of opportunities at the end of that game to win.
Yeah, and look, I'm frustrated with the way Michigan played, but UCLA deserves a ton of credit. They're playing fantastically well, and they're exciting to watch and very efficient.
Yeah, it wasn't like UCLA took it and ran with it with all those missed shots and kept scoring.
No.
It was right there, a one-possession game the whole time. I thought Wagner, I thought the pressure got to him a little bit on a couple of those shots. The air ball was awful. He had a really good look, and I thought it was a good shot. He shot the thing naturally in the end and just missed it. He did hit 2 free throws. That made it a 1-point game. That was big at the time. But for one of their best players, he even had a straight line drive to the basket that's really been his play all season that he just missed long off the backboard. One of those shots around the bucket you're talking about, Paul. But UCLA defends really well. I mean, you got to give them credit also. It's not like they're driving and dishing it off for a wide-open layup like you saw Gonzaga do in their game over and over. These were contested shots down low that UCLA did a good job against.
I thought with the size advantage, that's another reason I'm frustrated by the missing of the shots closer to the basket. Michigan should have been able to do more with its size advantage in this game than it did. So credit to UCLA for not getting beaten by size.
If Michigan shoots the way they did last night against UCLA, they get drummed by LSU. You know, they had an off night. When you watch them play, they normally hit some of these shots that they were jacking up and not getting close to, coming in. Some really tough looks, some layups. LSU played a great half against them early on in the second round, and Michigan stood toe-to-toe with them for the duration of that game because they played their style. And they used their length to their advantage. Last night, that was not the case.
Well, at halftime, UCLA had hit some crazy shots, and Michigan was missing badly. And so what did I do? I ran and bet on Michigan.
UCLA led, what, 5? Led by 5 at half? That was it?
Something like that.
Slow start.
And sometimes sports are just really simple. Michigan just didn't hit shots. I mean, we want to make it more complicated than it is, but Michigan was a better basketball team all season. They ran into a really good defensive UCLA team that made it difficult on them, but even when they got open looks, they weren't hitting them at the clip they normally would. And for UCLA, they were completely bailed out by Johnny Juzang, who was the only guy who could do anything, who rode the hot hand. At one point, he had 16 of their 21 points.
Yeah.
They had 21 points with, I think, 3 minutes left in the first half, and he had 16 of their 21. So he single-handedly, offensively, won the game for them.
And came back from a pretty good twisted ankle, too, where he backed into one of his teammates and stepped on a foot. We know how bad that can be.
Final four is set. Baylor takes on Houston, and Gonzaga takes on UCLA. FanDuel.com/OK360. The website, you see it at the bottom of the screen. Great offer for new users this week. 40-1 odds for the Final Four. New users, you can go bet the money line. You're going to see the lines here, the updated lines. Baylor favored by 5, Gonzaga favored by 14. You can bet the money line on Gonzaga and get the Zags 40-1 for new users. You bet $5, you win $200. All Gonzaga has to do is beat UCLA, and it makes you a winner if you're opting in to use FanDuel for the first time. FanDuel.com/OK360.
And look at the odds there, minus 1,100, and you're going to go win at that rate. I mean, if you haven't signed up yet.
I mean, Gonzaga, a 14-point favorite in a Final Four game. They were only not favored by double digits in this game last night. They were a 9-point favorite going into that game. That's incredible. I don't know why, if you're not signed up with FanDuel, I see these offers and I'm thinking, how on earth, if you're watching us right now, listening to us, do you not go to FanDuel.com/OK360 and take advantage of that offer?
Even if you don't want to become a bettor, I mean, go in, win that bet, take the money out, go shop. Go buy Chad's shoes.
Yeah, you can pay for Chad's shoes.
Zappos was
Gonzaga will help
responding to our tweet yesterday.
If you want to be the proud owner of these bad boys that I'm showing right now to the camera, these Cole Haans that are retail value over $150.
No,
you can make that happen quickly with that offer.
They had a good conversation, I thought, about the Zags in the studio show, which was incredibly long between those two games.
I'm with you guys.
Paul, we have to get
very
into your rant on
We'll get into that.
We'll get into that more. But they
games.
talked about, if they win this thing and go undefeated, do they qualify as an all-time great? Clearly, they qualify on the list of undefeated teams, which hasn't happened in forever since Indiana. So that's a monstrous accomplishment. But they were saying, this isn't Jordan worthy, and this isn't the UNLV teams that were stacked. And, I think you could throw other teams in there. It doesn't have Ewing or Olajuwon and I agree. I mean, it's a terrific basketball team. It's a terrific college basketball team, and these guys, they've got NBA players who are going to have good NBA careers. But I think when you looked at those other teams that I just rattled off, and a lot more that we could rattle off, you knew that those teams had guys who were going to be NBA Hall of Famers on them. And I don't think you look at this team and feel that way about it now. And that's not to insult them on any level. I've always said, like, your requirement as a college basketball team is to be a good college basketball team, not to produce NBA Hall of Famers or anything like that.
So this shouldn't take away from anything.
Is doing that. It doesn't take away from anything, no. But if you're going to rank it as an all-time college basketball thing, I think also you look at who they will have beaten along the way, and conference, especially in a COVID year, right? They didn't get to play out of conference and let us see them against other teams who I think they would have fared very well against. It's unfortunate we didn't get to see that. They will have had an amazing tournament run, but where do you place them amongst all-time great college teams? I'm not expert on that. Chad, you're better.
I have strong
context.
thoughts on this, on your stance on this. We can get into it.
Also, what's interesting is they had Baylor scheduled this year in December, neutral floor in Indianapolis.
Wow.
But
what was the point of Indianapolis? Was that part of a tournament?
Yeah,
the Champions Classic or one of these things.
They had Baylor on their schedule. Baylor had them on their schedule too.
That would have been
And there's
great.
a chance we see them play for the national title. Coming up, we'll get more into Gonzaga, what we think about their team, and we'll give props to Drew Timme and also to Jalen Suggs when we return. We'll discuss the Final Four schedule. And last night, and Monday night schedule as well, with the long break in between tip-offs and how that's hurting ratings, quite simply. I mean, Chad, you were discussing the ratings before.
I've got numbers. I've got numbers for you.
The show started today. There's a lot to dive into on the schedule that they came up with this year, how that's affected some of our viewership for people watching and deciding whether or not to stay up for the game, and how that impacts everything moving forward. That's straight ahead on OutKick 360. OutKick 360 across the OutKick network. We are live from Studio G in Nashville, Tennessee at Blackbird, and there's OutKick gear for you available. Hopefully we'll be wearing some here soon. You can go to OutKick.com, click on the shop tab, and it is 40% off until the end of March, which by my calendar is today. So go to OutKick.com.
By my watch.
By my watch.
That is 12 and a half hours that you have right now to take advantage of that.
OutKick.com, and again, use the code Merch Madness. You get OutKick 360 gear, OutKick gear, all the hats, the sweatshirts, the t-shirts, everything. It's available 40% off through today. OutKick.com, click on the shop tab. Watching Gonzaga last night, early, in the early game, the efficiency on full display yet again, where we see a team where, first off, led by Suggs, who is just so smooth and efficient and collected as a guard. I don't know how you neutralize him to the point where you take him out of the game to then get after what the Bulldogs do. He's the key to everything, and he's so composed in every facet of the game. That's why he's going to be a top 3 pick. When you see him shoot, pass, defend, just the floor general. He's everything you want in a guard, and that's the engine to what they do and why they put up 90 a game.
They're the best team. It's not even close. I don't even want to break down Gonzaga, UCLA, because I think it's going to be an absolute blowout. And that's not to discredit what UCLA has done so far. The only team that has a shot at them is Baylor. And we're going to be coming in here next Monday, and we're going to do a full breakdown of Baylor versus Gonzaga for the national title, because I fully believe that's what we're going to have, and that's the game that we all want.
We could have 2 blowouts on Saturday.
It is amazing. I do think Houston has a chance the way they muck it up to maybe make it interesting against Baylor, but I think Baylor wins that game in the end going away. Gonzaga is beautiful to watch. I mean, it is a beautiful style of basketball. Every single player on that team with how they pass. And I'm even talking about Drew Timme. 23 points last night, 8 rebounds, 7 assists, 3 steals. He is incredible to watch. Now, he's annoying for the opposition, rubbing his handlebar mustache and gesturing to the crowd and flexing, every time he does anything. But he is a savvy player. It's so unusual that you have every player in a rotation that is as basketball smart as that Gonzaga rotation. There's not one person they bring in that's a liability on offense and defense from a mental standpoint. They all know exactly what to do in every given moment. I think they're in the discussion for the greatest team of all time if they can close this thing out, which I think they will, and win the national title and go undefeated. Paul, you brought up the fact that it's a shortened season. They didn't have the big out-of-conference. They don't have those marquee out-of-conference wins that you'd normally see for a team like that. I immediately think about UNLV in the late 80s, early 90s. I think about that 1990 team that won it all. 91, I think that team was on its way to maybe being the greatest of all time before they got upset by Duke in the national semi. In the Final Four, they were undefeated. They were going to match Indiana in 76 for an undefeated season. But something you brought up, Paul, really made me think that they don't have that Hall of Fame type player, right? That star that immediately you think of Georgetown in the early 80s and you think of Patrick Ewing. You think of the great North Carolina teams and Michael Jordan and James Worthy and those groups. But I also think about the 2 teams that they're most commonly compared to. 76 Indiana, for obvious reasons. Quinn Buckner is the one player that everyone would know from that team.
Right.
He's one of 8 players in the history of basketball to win a college championship, an NBA title, and an Olympic gold medal. But he had a 10-year NBA career. He's no Hall of Famer as a player. But he was the star of that 76 Indiana team. 2014-2015 Kentucky. Now there you have Karl Anthony Towns and Devin Booker, who both may be on their way to Hall of Fame careers in the NBA. So they have some star power of guys who went on to the next level and have done great things. But I'm looking at Gonzaga, and Hutton, you brought up Jalen Suggs, and I'm thinking to myself, could Jalen Suggs have a Hall of Fame NBA career? Absolutely. Could Corey Kispert have a nice long NBA career and be a really good player? Yes. Could Timme go on and have a great NBA career in the right system with the right team? Absolutely. Time will tell. First off, the next week's going to tell us a lot if they actually finish this thing off and win the national title. But what they go on to do in the NBA and how recognizable are these names to the common basketball fan, just individually. But I'm looking at this team and I'm thinking back, even UNLV, Larry Johnson, is he in the NBA Hall? Is he in the Basketball Hall of Fame? He's the one guy. I mean, Stacey Augmon, great player. Anderson Hunt, a great college player. Greg Anthony, great player. But Larry Johnson's the name everybody's going to know. That's a basketball fan off of that UNLV team. So I guess my point is when you're trying to size up undefeated greatest teams of all time, it doesn't always correlate with the biggest star of the era.
Yeah,
and we're seeing that with Gonzaga.
I'll pick it up and kind of go against my own premise in two ways. Even if they don't have what I was talking about, maybe that makes them better. You know what I mean? Maybe a better team if you don't have, Ewing or Olajuwon or Jordan Worthy. Let's set up a game. Do you like this Gonzaga team against that UNLV team head-to-head? Now, it's a different game, so, you're talking different era, different style. There were 2-pointers shot by that UNLV team, but what's the spread on that game if I give you those two teams right now?
UNLV versus this team?
Yeah, it's a fascinating exercise.
I think it's Gonzaga -6.
Really?
If they played head-to-head. I'm trying not to let recency bias take hold here when I watch Gonzaga play, but I think they beat Kentucky in 2015. And I think that to me, may be the tougher matchup. If you're trying to put teams of different eras against each other, that could be the one that is a toss-up when you think about that great Kentucky team that lost to Wisconsin in the national semi. But I'm putting Gonzaga up against any of those teams.
You've got recency bias. I've got history bias, I think, in this instance.
But see, I do think that UNLV is the comparison because UNLV was in the Big West. They had no competition.
Yeah, it's a good comparison.
In their conference. And they're in the West Coast Conference with Gonzaga. So I think that's the apt comparison because
it is a good one.
Kentucky ran through the SEC undefeated. And I think this was right before the SEC put down the edict to get better teams when they made that undefeated run because that was a bad SEC year.
I think it was that same year.
But still, it's the SEC.
They prompted
You
it.
go through the SEC season, even a down year, undefeated, that is an unbelievable accomplishment. So that was a great team.
And UNLV is a good example because that's the it's that team or it's the UCLA teams of John Wooden that people put as the number one.
Too far era-wise in terms of comparison.
Yep. And the other thing about Gonzaga that makes them memorable, aside from their style of play, are they have the characters and the emotion across their roster. Our friend Ryan Brown, Chad.
Yes.
In Birmingham, at JOX. I think he tweeted this out last night. He said, imagine Drew Timme on the early 90s Duke teams. He fits the mold of Leitner and Cherokee Parks. Speaking of one of the greatest teams, he fits that type of mold and he fits the college basketball style that makes the tournament so great. Those are reasons why we'll remember this Gonzaga team. The first is they're going unbeaten to qualify for the discussion we're having. Aside from that, you're going to remember the types of players that they're not just some boring team rolling out there with one and dones.
You put him on Duke, he's absolutely hated nationally.
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
No, he's hated now.
He's hated by the opposition now, but no, the hatred's much more fierce
nationally, I think.
if it's Duke. So I just went to NBADraft.net, and I'm just looking at Gonzaga guys projected in the draft. Jalen Suggs projected 3rd overall right now, NBADraft.net. Corey Kispert projected 9th overall. So that's 2 lottery guys on the same team. And again, I'm just going by NBA-type talent. You've got Joel Ayayi, who's the Frenchman. That's a starter. 27th overall in the first round. Drew Timme, early in the second round, 41st overall. It's 4 guys. And then you put Nembhard in there, who's a 5-star prospect from Canada who went to Florida and starred and then transferred to Gonzaga. That's a lot of talent. I think that people just naturally underrate the talent simply because it's not Duke, Kentucky, one of those teams full of one-and-dones that are going to be top 5 picks. But that's 4 possible, maybe 5, if Nembhard's going to get a shot, NBA picks. Not just guys who may make money professionally, NBA picks that are starring on this team right now.
I think, I mean, all 3 of us expect them to go finish with 2 more wins. Then they lose all of that. And then it'll be fascinating to see what Few does to reload that team and what they do next year following this national championship. We expect them to win. Because that's the next thing, right? I mean, they're not having problems recruiting. Obviously, they're a national power, but national championship is a whole new thing.
That goes for 3 of the 4 teams right now in the Final Four.
Yeah.
Only 1 team in the Final Four has won a national title.
I mean, when was their last bad season? Like, what even is a bad season
Well,
for
what is it?
Gonzaga
They're the
now?
first team ever to win 30 games 6 years in a row.
They've been to 6 straight Sweet 16s.
30 wins 6
I mean,
years in a row.
name another program, even big time, that's got that level of consistency, not just regular season, but in the tournament. Because the knock with Mark Few before was, they're going to be great, and they're going to get a top 4 seed, and they're going to lose in the second round, for a number of years. But this is a team that not only excels in the regular season, they get to the tournament and have big time success now.
So one bid conference generally too, no?
Yes.
Sometimes St. Mary's.
Right.
It's usually either them or them and St. Mary's that can get an at-large bid.
So I mean, they're so
St. Mary's
good.
had some 10 seeds, 8, 9 seeds.
Because
in the
they beat
tournament as
Gonzaga
at-large.
those years.
Right.
And because Gonzaga raised the profile of that conference.
Right, but there are ways for a team like that to have a slip-up year and not get in, and it's unheard of there, right? I mean, they're getting
Well,
in.
it's every year Gonzaga's the one team that could lose the West Coast Conference tournament and be fine.
Right.
And still get a bid. So I'm sure that conference is rooting for Gonzaga to lose in that tournament so they get 2 bids.
Right.
Because
St.
Gonzaga's
Mary's
always going to be in.
I am a bit surprised that, but because we referenced this last week, the number 1 overall seed in the entire tournament is the fan favorite. And
Never
because of
happened.
that, I'm a bit surprised that we don't have more of a clamoring of, this team is the greatest college basketball team we've ever seen. Because everyone in their bracket, 60% chose Gonzaga.
I'm
so
surprised it's not higher.
You're rooting for Gonzaga. The other part is you're rooting for Gonzaga because they're considered the small school going against the Blue Bloods, even though we're not seeing Duke and Kentucky in this term. We're not seeing Indiana. I appreciate the fact that Charles and everyone on the national broadcast isn't just crowning them because they're on the NCAA broadcast for 2021. So I do respect that. But also, the fact that they're doing this and they've reached the level that they've been able to reach this year with, again, the caveat that they finish it out now with 2 more and with the dominance that they're doing it, with the ease of play that they play with. Chad, you mentioned that a few minutes ago. They deserve way more respect than that. And Paul, you mentioned we have recency bias, you have history bias. So does CBS. I mean, there's a reason why CBS put Georgetown as their marquee matchup in the second round on that Sunday to watch them get drubbed on national TV by 30 points or whatever it was, 40 points.
Historical
and they put
bias.
Gonzaga on some, True TV.
Right. Historical bias and star bias, so it's not a star player, but you got Ewing walking the sideline, and they love that.
It's funny that you mentioned Ewing and Georgetown. I was on with Clay Travis on his OutKick morning show recently, and we were discussing the Gonzaga phenomenon, and he was comparing it to Georgetown. And he said this is the modern day Georgetown, because Georgetown was a very little known, it was a good school, little known Jesuit school in Washington, D.C.
No sports.
Catholic school, not known for sports, and John Thompson takes over and turns into a national powerhouse. And now you got a Jesuit school in the Pacific Northwest, and Gonzaga, granted they had success in 99 making that Sweet 16 run, and John Stockton was an alum, but Mark Few takes over and turns it into this national juggernaut. So I think there are some similarities, but Georgetown's in Washington, D.C., right? A big city.
As opposed to
Gonzaga's in Spokane. I also think it's funny when you hear people talk about just geography and places in America. And last night, I think it was Kevin Harlan on the Gonzaga call. He's talking about Ayayi, who's from Bordeaux, France, and how everybody's asking, what's it like to be in this small town of Spokane, Washington? And I'm thinking, I've heard of Spokane, Washington. It's not the smallest town in America. There are things to do there. And he said, oh, it's very similar to Bordeaux, where he's from in France. He said it's actually, very close to it. I felt very comfortable there. And I hear people talk about Spokane being a small town. I'm thinking, have you been to Starkville, Mississippi? Have you been to Auburn, Alabama? There are some big schools that are in some very small places compared to Spokane, Washington, which is a little school in a decent-sized town.
They miscast it as a small town, and what they mean is a
far
away
yeah.
town.
It's tucked in a corner of America.
Yeah.
That's the difference.
And they recruit nationally.
Yeah.
Drew Timme from Texas.
Well, they've had, international success over the years. They've had success in Canada. You going and getting players. I mean, it is a national brand now. There's no doubt about it.
They're hard to hate.
The Frenchman, before he came over, he went and circled the Champs-Élysées. Hutton loves when I throw out some French
Paul
landmarks.
takes us on the tour of Paris.
Go through Paris. He loves it.
Champs-Élysées and the
Arc de Triomphe. He loves all of it.
Oh, yeah. What I love is FanDuel. FanDuel.com/OK360. Right now, 40-1 odds for new users if you sign up with FanDuel. New users who sign up, you can take Gonzaga, who we're just talking about. They're favored by 14. You can take Gonzaga on the money line to win over UCLA. You bet $5, you win $200 as a new user with FanDuel. FanDuel.com/OK360. And not only would you win $200 through FanDuel with a $5 bet for new users, you would also be able to celebrate with Paul Kuharsky because HEP would no longer be on the screen if this happens.
Let me correct myself. The other day I said that HEP looked like Goldfinger. I meant he looked like Goldmember. Goldmember from the Austin Power.
And he does.
And I sent the boys this last
amazing.
night. Is that not a pretty
You also
good
found the
similarity?
perfect picture of HEP. Where
That's the only picture of
the
HEP.
mask covering the bottom of the face looks like the mutton chops of Goldfinger.
To be honest, that's the only picture I can find of
Goldmember,
HEP,
sorry.
which is crazy because for how much he's on TV, I would have thought there. Actually, last night I thought it wasn't overbearing, though I did miss the beginning of the game. So I didn't. You and I had an over/under on what would be shown in the first 90 seconds.
I don't know if he was.
He just looks like your type of old man. I got to look at him and I'm like, this seems like a guy that Paul would actually appreciate.
My type of old man.
He just looks like
I'm not good with the old.
A smaller sort of curmudgeon-y type old guy, like very serious and.
I'm not good with the old. The only old people I know are my parents.
The aged.
You're
not good with the aged?
I'm very bad with the aged. My grandparents died by the time I was 11. And I don't have a lot of experience with the aged outside of my own parents who are in their. My dad's 91. My mom is 86, 87.
So I hate dogs. Paul hates old people and
I don't
children.
hate them. I kind of
doesn't connect with them.
Fear them a little bit.
I got something that's going to make you hate HEP even more. By the way,
it's going to make me happy.
Happy and hate HEP even more. And that is this graphic that we're going to show right now.
Oh.
That HEP, as a scout for the Braves, actually had a hand in the Braves drafting one of your least favorite athletes of all time, Paul, one Larry Chipper Jones.
Chipper, Larry.
How can you not like Chipper?
He's so red. He's just so incredible.
Paul's trying to take things that are red and make it less red.
He's just such a country boy. He's got so little substance to him outside of baseball. That's how I don't like him. Also, the guy didn't win.
How many baseball players have a lot of substance to them?
He win.
I feel like baseball sometimes can be the least substantive sport out there with players outside of the game of baseball.
Here's why I don't like Chipper, and this is why I don't like a lot of Braves who are celebrated. Dale Murphy, who people think is a Hall of Famer, just a joke to me. They act like these guys are among the all-time greats and that they won, like they were big winners. These guys are big losers. If you go to the playoffs all the time and you never win, you're a loser. It's the same as the Mets.
When does winning have anything to do with the Hall of Fame? You were talking about people wanting Dale Murphy in the Hall of Fame.
He
was a loser. They weren't good when he was on the team, but there are plenty of great players on awful
Ernie
teams
Banks.
that are in the Hall of Fame.
All right, I'm separating the two. Dale Murphy was a loser on a loser team, and Chipper I mean, Chipper's the greatest guy ever. What happened to him in the playoffs? He won one time. He was there all the time. He was like the furniture of the playoffs, there all the time, and couldn't do anything except go to Yankee Stadium and get chanted at as Larry, not produce, and go home.
If you spent the last 9 years with the Baltimore Orioles, no offense, Hutton.
It's okay.
Hutton's team's the
You're a loser. You're a loser. You're finishing routinely in last place.
And not only that, if you're a good
loser.
player, you've been traded.
I have a hard time saying that if you were a part of 14 or 15, whatever the number is, straight division titles, that you are, as Paul says, a loser because you only won one World Series.
I hate that you don't.
It's a very strong word for a franchise that won an awful lot.
I hate that you, and more than you,
Tell me how you hate me, please.
other Braves
Please.
fans wave around those 14 or 15 playoff appearances like it's a giant accomplishment, when the purpose of going to the playoffs is to win the series, and you managed one. It's not that big to go to the playoffs that often if you don't finish.
How many other teams have done that?
I don't care. I don't count those. I count World Series.
You don't count something that maybe hasn't happened in terms of a streak of division championships?
I don't count the Yankees' division championships or playoff
So Aaron
appearances.
Judge
That's not
right
my
now,
thing.
a
Aaron
loser.
Judge has not gotten it done.
Like a complete loser.
He's not gotten
Say
it
it
done.
to this camera.
He's a
right
loser.
Here.
He hasn't gotten it done. He's also-
Address this camera.
Aaron Judge,
No,
all
say
right.
it from the
All
beginning.
right.
He's a loser because he can't prevent himself from having soft tissue injuries. If he could prevent himself from having soft tissue injuries, he'd be in the lineup and they would win. But he's always on the sideline because he can't keep his hamstrings from straining.
I love that Paul just called Aaron Judge a loser.
I love that we got Paul to admit that Aaron Judge, by his definition, is a loser, even though no one else in the show thinks Aaron Judge is a
Absolutely
loser.
not.
I don't relate to
I don't
this
think Aaron
thing.
Judge is a loser.
I'm
All
thinking
right.
of a friend of yours in particular who I can't name because he's associated with our former employee, who literally, probably has the 14 pennants on his parents, on his bedroom at his parents' house where I think he still lives, and he has the 14 probably with a hole in the 1 year they didn't qualify, and thinks this is the major accomplishment of his life, that his team won 14 pennants. 14 playoff trips. And that to him is like, a ring.
And because of that, Paul hates Chipper Jones.
It all comes full circle. And because of that, he also hates Hep Cronin.
Yes, this is the
All because of
mentality
this.
of Braves fans, and they'll fight me to the death on it. And now I ask you, wouldn't you trade those 14
No one's fighting you on World
for one
Series
more
titles.
ring?
Like, I don't know where this. You're dealing with some really stupid people. If any Braves fan wants to fight
Thank
a
you.
Yankees fan,
That's it. Braves fans
on World
deep
Series
South,
titles.
really stupid.
I mean, it's
very
not.
red.
No one's going to argue with the Yankees'
I hope
World
Paul gets
Championship
his
success.
ass kicked by someone soon. I mean, you're
Doesn't
speaking
happen.
like someone who needs his ass kicked.
I hope
Doesn't
the
it?
Yankees get whipped by the Braves in a World Series. That's what I really
you
hope
had a
happens.
chance to pick the Braves. You picked the Orioles.
I didn't pick the Braves or the Yankees because you guys are fans of them. That was the prerequisite of what exactly I did.
And I've been on record. I'm a closet Orioles fan. Always have been. Love the colors. Being a
For those that
Tennessee
don't
grad,
know-
I love Cal Ripken. I loved Eddie Murray back in the day, even though he was a very moody guy.
Eddie Murray was so moved.
For those that don't know,
love him.
I wrote a letter as a free agent fan. No allegiance to any baseball team. And
Every team but Braves and Yanks?
every team but the Braves and the Yanks. 8 teams responded. The Diamondbacks, the Rays, the Twins, and the Orioles, far and away the best response. And then the Orioles responded 2 more times
Cranked it up.
after responding for the first time. And they made it an easy decision. I'm a Baltimore Orioles fan. This was also whenever Manny Machado was on the team a few years back. This was when they were actually competitive in some sense.
When Chris Davis could make contact.
They fielded
This was
major
happening
league.
at
Yeah,
that point
exactly.
also.
That's
He could
another way to
actually
date
touch
it.
the baseball.
This is
Fielded
when
major league players.
this
at
is
the
when
time.
Crush Davis had a bobblehead and you wanted to keep it.
Yes.
Right? Like
This is when he was actually crushing the ball.
You
and
should
not
bring in
missing
an
it.
Orioles item for the show.
Yeah, we do.
They gave you everything.
Oh, okay.
Well, yeah, you've got plenty.
Yeah, I'll bring some in.
They gave
Tomorrow,
you so many things.
tomorrow we'll bring in some Orioles gear just for
Not
Hutton.
some. One.
Oh,
Paul's like, let's
Tomorrow I'm going to come
let's
in.
not act rash.
The whole thing's everything's down. It's all Orioles. That'd be funny as a prank.
A story that you'll
came in first.
a story you'll never hear on this show is the beginning of "Let's Not Act Rash."
Oh, I'll
That's
tell it.
one that you'll never hear.
I'll tell it in a VIP event.
Maybe in a VIP event.
That'll be the uncensored part of the VIP.
I'll tell it, and we'll drop a lot of F-bombs.
Coming up, our thoughts on Jim Nantz. Hello, friends.
Yes.
He is re-upped.
Just the name, when you say it, the hello friends, and the name Jim Nantz, it calms me in a certain way. We'll discuss.
Yes, this whole segment has settled down now.
OutKick 360 rolls on. Chad, on display behind you, the birth of Catfish Jake and the instrument of crime. Jacob Waddell, huge fan of the show and a great friend of ours, threw a catfish on the ice in Game 1 of the Stanley Cup Final, the Nashville Predators at the Pittsburgh Penguins, and he was charged with disrupting the peace and charged with using and possessing an instrument of crime, which just happened to be a catfish that he threw on the ice. And here is the court summons from the Honorable Jeffrey A. Manning. We display it proudly.
The Honorable Jeffrey A. Manning, the Honorable Jacob Waddell, the reason that we went to Augusta National for the first time, the reason that we had a sticker of our previous show on the catfish that hit the ice. Now the one thing we need to do, Hutton, is just get this man an OutKick 360 sticker so he can place it on a fish of some sort and throw it on the ice of a big NHL event.
Our next big goal is to have one of the catfish that's on display at Bridgestone Arena named after Jake.
Something new from the shelf. This is an invitation to Jerry Jones's Hall of Fame party just outside Canton, Ohio. I got it because I'm on the selection committee. It was +1. But there are 3 of us. Who perturbed me last at the time? Hutton got the golden ticket. Literally golden. There's Jerry on the back in gold. They had golden wrapped hamburgers at the end of this event where we watched Justin Timberlake performed Not From Far Away. We drank with Derek Dooley, and we toasted with Amy Adams Strunk. Later on, we met Chad in Cleveland.
The 360 Masters is back. Hey, it's Hutton. Hope you'll join us on June 10th for a one-of-a-kind event with OutKick 360, other great writers and producers from OutKick, including David Reed, who will throw his back out again for the 2nd annual event. Thursday, June 10th, you can sign up on Eventbrite or just follow us on Twitter at OutKick 360. 100% of the proceeds will go to the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society of Tennessee. Hope you'll join us for a great event. Get your team today and join us at Topgolf Nashville for the 360 Masters. Coming up, why did Chad visit the grave of someone he did not know? That's coming up on OutKick 360. But first, we discuss the Jim Nantz return to a long-term contract. We discussed this a few months back, that Tony Romo is getting paid upwards of, $18 million a year, around that, from CBS. And there was a report out at the end of last year that Nantz was wanting Tony Romo money in these contract negotiations. Well, he's going to be back with CBS. He remains the voice of CBS Sports. And Chad, you mentioned it. Very calming effect when you think of the voice and the name Jim Nantz. I agree. And I'm glad he's back on the call with Romo. I'm glad he's back on the call as the biggest events that are on CBS.
This will be a bigger topic at some point that we'll get into, but I think there are very few people in broadcasting now that have the gravitas of Jim Nantz. That every event that Jim Nantz does is a big event. Every time you hear his voice. Now, it's a chicken and the egg. He's doing big events because he's done them for years. So when I'm watching the Masters and I hear Jim Nantz, well, the Masters is clearly a big event. When I'm watching the Final Four and hear Jim Nantz, well, the Final Four is a big event. But Jim Nantz raises the profile of everything. When he's on the call of a first-round NCAA tournament game, raises the profile of that game. When he's on the call of a PGA Tour event in Connecticut in April, it raises the gravitas of that event. So I just think there are a few people like him out there. I think he's technically very, very good as a broadcaster. I've never had any big objections to Jim Nantz, maybe other than the self-portrait of himself that his ex-wife took in the divorce.
The tie.
Paul's got a thing with the tie. But wouldn't you agree, Paul, that there's very few people like that now in broadcasting, that it's a huge deal when they're a part of it?
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with you about raising the profile of a PGA event in Connecticut. If you flip by that on a random Saturday or Sunday and he's there or he's not there, that makes the difference in the broadcast as to whether you think it's something worthwhile or not. And gravitas is absolutely the right word with him. But I do also think some of these events are bigger than him, certainly. And there was a time, and this maybe was before you guys were keen to such things, or alive perhaps, where Brent Musburger felt that way. And they decided to let Brent Musburger go, in part to make room for Jim Nantz, really. And, people thought the world would stop spinning without Brent Musburger at these events. And it went on. And Bob Costas was gravitas for NBC at these events. Olympics.
I think Costas, I think Olympics, I think NBA
without
Finals.
Costas.
The two things that come to mind.
And the world went on fine with Costas minimized and disappeared. And he's not that old. Costas isn't a guy who needed to be put out to pasture. And so I do think sometimes the magnitude of that guy can be overrated a little bit. I don't know. Do we know the details of his money? It's not my money.
Well,
to spend.
This is something else I want to get out there.
I haven't seen that.
He deserves more money than Tony Romo. I don't understand where the debate lies.
Well,
Tony Romo does NFL, and that's it. And he's the color guy. Jim Nantz is doing play-by-play and doing different events across the spectrum for CBS all year. Much more work.
He's going from Final Four to Masters.
Much more work.
The reason that Romo makes that money is because he comes out of making that much money. So they're matching an NFL contract, so to speak, or getting in that neighborhood, which is, you could easily argue, as you're doing, it's silly.
Yeah, and I
Nantz
think
with
Romo's
the tie,
great, but he needs more money. Jim Nantz does than Romo.
Nantz with the tie is a silly thing. I think it's the one thing. The portrait also makes him look silly. He gives his tie that he wears for the final March Madness game to his. He picks a guy that he deems worthy of his tie. He takes off his tie post game and literally tells the kid that he won his tie and kind of puts it around his neck. He didn't tie it on him.
He won a gold medal.
That'd be really weird if he said, "Turn around, let me tie this on you."
Well, does he untie it, or does he leave the knot and just give you the knotted tie?
I don't know. This is a good question. I've always pictured him untying it and then just kind of, putting it around his neck. It's a bizarre ritual that should have stayed a secret.
It's weird,
because it really diminishes Jim Nantz in my eyes.
UW on Twitter says, I think that Jim Nantz's partners have helped him too. We didn't feel this way when he was calling games with Billy Packer or Phil Simms. Hill, Raftery, and Romo made him a lot more palatable, if not better.
Yeah, but the thing about Nantz,
I disagree.
Nantz doesn't make it about him. He makes it about the guy he's calling the game or sport with.
Yeah,
that's the key.
I had no issue knowing it was a big deal when Billy Packer was on the call or Phil Simms was on the call with Jim Nantz. I think that Nantz also elevates those guys.
I agree.
So, yeah, I think Grant Hill's terrific. I think having those, good color guys around you certainly helps, but Jim Nantz is helping that event.
Phenomenal.
Terrific.
Just like the event being big helps Jim Nantz, but Jim Nantz is really elevating the event also. Something I thought about with Jim Nantz, though, if you guys remember in the 90s, CBS had the Winter Olympics rights. What was Jim Nantz doing on the Winter Olympics in those. I want to say he was figure skating. And I feel like someone can tweet us and let us know. I haven't looked it up, but I'm thinking I remember hearing
Hello, friends.
Nancy Kerrigan and Tanya Harding. I think that Jim Nantz was the voice of figure skating in that Winter Olympics. But I could be way off. But he was with CBS then, even in the early 90s. What was he doing during those Winter Olympics? Now, remember, NBC had the Summer Olympics. CBS for a time had the Winter Olympics. Now NBC has everything, Olympics.
You should spend big on this job with all these big events that you have and have a guy like Jim Nantz. But I will say, like, Liam McHugh has gotten some prime seats at some prime desks now, to which I said, who the F is Liam McHugh when he started at NBC? And now I don't give a damn that it's Liam McHugh. That job is not that significant. Now, that's a desk as opposed to a play-by-play guy, so to speak. But you get the gist of what I'm saying. Like, it doesn't matter to me unless you're butchering it, who it is. You know, the very best is important and the very worst is important. Otherwise, if you're in that middle thing, I don't really care that much.
Nantz is listed as the weekend daytime co-host for the Winter Olympics in '92 and '94.
He's in the studio, but that's a long time ago.
So he was the Costas or Dan Patrick.
Yeah, but that's only '92 and '94.
I think I had that right. Again, this is Wikipedia.
Well, that's what I said. That's when they had the rights.
Oh.
They didn't have the rights after that. I think around that time is when NBC took over both winter and summer.
He was a relative kid.
There was a time where I remember as a kid watching it on CBS.
The '98 Winter Olympics, he's the primetime host.
So they had it. 98 would have been the last.
Which is the right.
That's right, because 02 Salt Lake City would have been the first NBC Winter and Summer Olympics. And so they had 02 Salt Lake City. That makes sense.
So no figure skating? I was really hoping.
Liam McHugh, by the way.
hoping for the tie presentation at the figure skating.
You bring this up, Paul, and it gets me thinking about Liam McHugh. Liam McHugh both looks like fully grown man and like he was just birthed. He looks like he's got the supple face of a baby.
Where's he from?
But yet he also looks like a fully grown man. It's a very interesting look. He's a handsome man.
Where did he come from?
But his face
Also
looks like it's never been touched by the world.
Handsome man.
It looks like he just was birthed and he's as a fully grown man. Like, look at his face. We'll find a picture at some point. And it's like supple like a child.
Now you
but yet he's a grown man.
You say he's a handsome man, but what do you think of him as a child?
You're missing the point. This is gonna get myself in a lot of trouble here.
It's a good question, right? Did I ask a good question?
His face.
I'm getting thumbs up from
his skin looks new like a child, but he looks like a man.
He glows.
He's clearly a grown man, but there's a radiance about it.
Compare his skin to, say, let me think, Angie Withrow's skin.
Well,
Very
it's
soft.
Again, basically the same. Like very newborn, looks great. It's terrific.
Basically the same.
Yeah.
Speaking of kids.
Yes, let's get back to John's family.
I want Chad to tell the story of why I'm flipping through Instagram story.
Through a graveyard.
And I see Chad and his daughter Evie kneeling at a tombstone.
She's embracing the tomb.
And I thought, is this the anniversary of a family member passing in the Withrow? Like, I didn't know I was going to send Chad a text. And then I read the description.
I found this pre-Easter, like a resurrectional anticipation.
In fact, you have no idea whose headstone this is, correct?
Read it for me.
Monroe,
Perry.
Monroe Perry, who I believe passed away in 1960. Was born in the 1800s and died in 1960. So we're out for a bike ride.
Let's leave that up.
Yesterday, I'm running behind my 5-year-old daughter, who's on her bike.
Sorry
with
about
training
her
wheels,
vision.
trying to get her to get rid of the training wheels. Those are decorative only. the glasses. She refuses to take those glasses off. She's been wearing them to school. It's actually a pretty fun look for her. So she loves those glasses. She's been wearing that. So she just stops. There's this in Mount Juliet. There's this big graveyard right in the middle of this bike path. Stops.
Keep it up.
Doesn't say a word. Goes up to this grave and starts touching the marble like she has a connection to Monroe. What's the last name again, Hutton?
Perry.
Monroe Perry, to this man who passed away, and it was a great mystery to me. Now after that, she did run around the graveyard and started looking at other graves, and I was having to tell her, like, let's not disrespect the grave sites by trampling over all of them.
It's a playground.
But there was no announcement. It was just, it's like she was drawn to the grave of Monroe Perry.
Here's what I think.
Got off the bike and walked right to that grave.
When I see this, I think this.
What's that music, Paul?
Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
Could be.
Fine.
I think more of a, isn't that
Her little hand
an
is
alien
kind of, yeah.
story?
Well, it's also this mystical. I see the hand and the way her little hand, her right hand. See the way her right hand is. There's a certain like grabbiness. It's like tender, but also grabby.
Now, here's what you have to worry
Kind
about.
of like Liam McHugh's face. Yeah. Tender, but also grabby.
Here's what you have to worry about, Chad. Two things. First, you don't need a new medium in the family.
Right.
Second, whenever you're shopping at Target and you're looking at board games, stay away from the Ouija board.
Yeah, no.
Whenever you're bringing that home.
We're not going to be doing that. If we turn into Sixth Sense and I become, if I die at some point, become Bruce Willis. Spoiler alert for those who haven't seen Sixth Sense. Then that's going to be a problem.
Ruined it.
If she's talking to dead people.
I was going to watch that tonight.
Yeah. If she's talking to dead people, that's going to be an issue.
I think this is the best photo that we've put up on the board.
I think we should print it and have it on the shelf.
I think it's better than Gold Member for sure and Heb. And that was the best up until 3 minutes
ago. A year
ago.
from now, we just have Chad's daughter kneeling at a grave. And, if you just tune in, you're going to think, this is a Withrow.
Hey, here's a show idea.
Let's move along, shall we? Tennessee Power Hour coming up.
Here's a show idea.
It's enough family time here.
Here's a show idea for Lance and Jakob. Could we create a running slideshow of all of the photos that we give you that just grows and grows and grows, and we run it periodically during a commercial? And that photo of Evie at the grave will just periodically run during a commercial on a loop with Hep. And who did we give him earlier this week? Whatever, the fat kicker.
So this ties into previous show. He Hate V on Twitter says, were y'all listening to Old Town Road before the bike ride? This is in connection with the satanic shoes with Lil Nas X. Maybe there was a medium connection with his ties to Satan now. And now Evie has opened up some window into where she can speak to the dead.
Just to conclude the question we had, it was Uncle Vern on figure skating with Jim Nantz as the studio.
Not
host.
often confused, but you've done
Vern Lundquist, another great voice. Coming up, the Tennessee Power Hour. A lot to get to, and we will speak with Chris Lee of VandySports.com later in the hour and get the details on the $300 million commitment from the university to its athletics program. OutKick 360 rolls on. OutKick 360 and the Tennessee Power Hour alongside Chad Withrow and Paul Kuharski. I'm Jonathan Hutton, Lance Lee, Jakob Swanson, the Bathsalt Bandit, David Reed, the chairman of the board. Emma Notestein is the queen of all things social media for us. Twitter.
She's our queen.
Facebook.
She's our queen.
Instagram. If you're watching on YouTube, we hope you'll subscribe to the channel. If you have an Amazon device, you can find us really quickly by asking Alexa to search OutKick on YouTube. We hope you'll share the show each and every day as we are live at noon Eastern, 11 Central, and the final hour of the show each day, the Tennessee Power Hour. We start today with the Tennessee Titans. We're going to get to the headlines, including Vanderbilt, in a moment. But, Paul, with the 17th game announced across the league, made that official yesterday at the NFL owners' meetings, the Titans will pick up an extra home game. The AFC teams pick up the extra home game this year. And as we check out the Titans' home and away schedule, on paper, it is brutal. West Coast swing among some other opponents on the road schedule. And you see the home schedule as well with the 49ers, the Dolphins, Chiefs, Bills, Cardinals, along with the AFC South opponents. The extra opponent, the 17th game, they'll be hosting the New Orleans Saints.
Things change year to year, obviously, so schedule strength is a difficult thing to predict. But based on how people were last year and based on some early moves like Stafford to the Rams, looks like a difficult schedule.
And
more
check
travel,
out the schedule again.
More
here
travel
with
involved.
The travel schedule, which we haven't seen in a while, on the road, at LA, at Seattle, and then up north with the Patriots and the Jets. And
these are great trips for reporters.
Absolutely.
So that'll be really nice. I want to talk about the 17th game edition because I visited with Clay this morning. He likes it. Lindsey Jones likes this idea of regional rivalries. I'm totally against the regional rivalry, and I'm glad they went the direction that they did. And they're not going the regional rivalry direction. Look, there's some very natural regional rivalries, obviously. Jets-Giants annually would be fun. Rams-Chargers annually would be great.
Kind of what you get in the preseason right now.
Yeah, but Titans-Falcons or Titans-Panthers is not going to create anything big between Nashville and Atlanta or Nashville and Charlotte that has any meaning. These things happen naturally. The best NFL regional rivalries are taken care of by the divisions, Cleveland and Pittsburgh, say, or the NFC North is loaded with them. And, you know, if you give Dallas right now Houston, for the next 3 years, Dallas would be thrilled to be playing Houston. Anything can happen, right? But if you're a Cowboys fan, you would love to be playing the Texans, who are an absolute mess right now. And so I think it messes with, if you were to go regional rivalry, and this is not happening, a competitive imbalance based on who's good and who's not. If you make it another rotation game that's keyed on where you finish, the Titans were a first-place team. Now they're drawing the first-place team from a rotating division in the other conference, the Saints in this instance. It's another rotating element, and it's a third game in your schedule that's based on strength of schedule from last year. You play somebody else that finished in the same slot you finished in. And so you've got 2 games in your conference that are based on your finish, and now a game in the other conference that's based on your finish. That, to me, rolls more systemically and is more related to how teams are. Makes more sense. Plus, now you get to see a team a little more often than you would. Usually that rotation is, you know, you're only going to see an NFC team, if you're an AFC team, in your stadium once every 8 years. And now this rotates into the mix. Say if Breeze was still playing, all of a sudden you'd have a bonus Breeze game in Nashville, which would be super cool for fans.
Well, the only thing I like about the regional rivalry aspect for Nashville is the easy drive to Atlanta that we saw 2 years ago in Week 4, where Titans fans can go down, have a weekend, do whatever they want, check out. You can time it up where you can check out a Braves game, for instance, if they're in town, if it's a September matchup, and then go to the Falcons game on Sunday and actually make a weekend of it and see your team on the road. That's the only draw for me that I would say, that makes a lot of sense. Ultimately, though, isn't the goal of the NFL to take this 17th game and make it international, not regionally, but international,
right,
with Mexico, Germany, Europe, Canada? I mean, aren't they taking this overseas?
Yeah, and also
Tokyo.
Well, they've conquered the United States.
Yeah.
In terms of interest and revenue, right? I mean, they're doing all they can and making so much money here. But you look at the NBA and Europe and China and the amount of money they're making right now, and I think you're spot on, Hutton, in that's the next frontier. They're doing everything they can in the United States. Why not now go branch out and have a bigger following in foreign countries?
Also, the goal of the 17th game is to get an 18th game, right? So
right.
you get the 18th game,
Yeah.
and then what do? You have a regional rivalry game, and then what do? See, what they're doing, they can build on that, and now you can play another team from the other NFC division that you're not playing, So it builds more logically. Here's what I'd like to see. I think they could be creating too much of an inventory for international games. Yeah, I think there's a certain degree of overkill with the travel and everything. Expand it, yes. Overexpand it, no. I was talking again to Clay this morning. I like the idea of, take the Lions to Ann Arbor once in a while, or just once, and create a huge event. The Lions are playing at Michigan, and this is a one-time thing. You're going to get 100,000 people there. It's for a good game.
Take the Titans to Neyland Stadium.
A good game on their schedule. Take the
example.
Titans to Knoxville, and you could say, I saw the Titans play.
You'd get 100,000
at this stadium. You bring in hopefully it's a good draw game. They get a bigger gate, and maybe.
But
maybe
if you're
you
going
could
back
do
to the
it for
regional
Jags.
idea, what if you had Titans Panthers in Knoxville? Meeting in the middle.
The Titans-Panthers game is going to be on the schedule at some point anyway, so you could save it for when that happens, put it there. But if it's a Titans home game, they're most interested in getting Titans fans in there, But if you do one-offs like this and create events, then it's like the outdoor hockey games almost, in terms of you can create merchandise for the special one-off game. It's a memory book thing for a family. You have the trip that you're talking about. You could go spend an overnight there or make a weekend of it. Even from Detroit to Ann Arbor, which isn't a day trip kind of thing, but you could turn it into that. And think for the visiting fan that goes. If the Lions are playing the Dolphins, if you're a Miami fan, you go, hey, I've always been curious about Michigan's campus in Ann Arbor, and here's my once-in-a-lifetime chance to see the Dolphins play at a completely random college stadium in the middle of the country.
Paul, I want to ask you this about the appetite for NFL games in foreign countries, because I would equate it, and you're best equipped to answer this, I would equate it to English Premier League games happening in the U.S. It seems like there would be a big draw and appetite for that.
Massive. I mean,
it's the reverse, right? How much is too much if you're going to London or somewhere in England and playing NFL games? Because I would equate it to England coming to the United States and going to different cities in the U.S. and playing regular season EPL matches.
England was playing, they play those preseason series here. It's not just England.
But do you see the similarity in terms of interest? I mean, the NFL is a very minor sport in England, but it does have a following.
Well, it's done very well.
EPL's a minor sport in the U.S., but it does have a big following.
They're selling out quickly the 4 games that they're putting there.
Yeah, it's done very well. And they're regular season games with meaning, unlike these, training games to get ready for soccer season, which do incredibly well here. Who was it? Tottenham that was here.
Yep.
And, I had Tottenham fan friends coming from other parts of the country and making a weekend in Nashville. I mean, it makes sense to go to Germany and extend the European footprint to places that like it. It makes sense maybe to have a full regular season of a variety of teams in London, between Wembley and the new stadium where they have an agreement. I think it's Tottenham. But I also think it's the logistical thing of regular season and just pulling teams into this travel thing, which is just killer. They also really like that 9 a.m. window.
They don't
where
have
you
to
can
worry
have a
about the
9
travel
o'clock
as
game,
much.
a noon game, a 3 o'clock game, and Sunday night football.
They're not worried about the travel.
Window.
It's like complaining about, oh, the extra game is so wear and tear on your body. They don't care about that. They're going to make $100 billion profit off this next TV contract. And they're now telling teams once out of every 8 years, you're going to play internationally, guaranteed. And we already know Jacksonville's willing to do it 4 times a year if they'll allow it. They'll play half their schedule over in London.
I don't know about 4, but more.
They would love to play 4. They want to do half and half.
I don't know that that's true.
We've discussed that previously. They would love to do half and half their home schedule in Jacksonville, half their home schedule in London. Right now it's 2 games.
They've invested an awful lot of money in Jacksonville to desert it for half their home schedule. I don't know that they've said that. We'll have to get back to tomorrow after
So you're telling me they wouldn't just bolt for London if given the opportunity?
I don't think
the Cons absolutely would take
I don't
Jacksonville
think they
to
would
London.
bolt for London if given the opportunity, and I don't think it's logistically feasible for the league to send road teams there. On
Well, it's not for the
regular basis.
league.
That's
but would
why they
Shad
would
Khan
send them
wanna
for
do it?
half of the schedule there.
But here's the question: does the CBA cover this, sending teams over there that often, or is it something that the Players Association has zero say in? And I'm curious about that too, and we'll have to do some research on that. We'll have to circle
Straight
back
from
to
the ESPN report, each team will play an international game at least once every 8 seasons. Up to 4 neutral site games will be scheduled, with the initial focus on Canada, Europe, Mexico, South America, and the United Kingdom.
I understand
And
that.
they also added in Germany.
I understand that. I'm wondering if there's going to be pushback at all from players. You're talking about they don't care because of the money factor, which I get.
They have the weakest CBA among professional leagues.
I understand that too. But players are bemoaning the fact that there's a 17th game after they approved it. This doesn't mean players are going to not bitch about it.
They're getting 48.5% revenue of the $100 billion.
They want the money, but it doesn't mean they won't complain about it.
They can complain all they want. They'll
They're gonna
take their
do it.
check. They'll do what they always do.
They've shown us they'll do that.
They'll complain and say it's unhealthy, and then they'll take a bigger check and be
Speaking
fine.
of checks, $300 million check is what we're expecting at Vanderbilt for facilities. We know of at least $100 million commitment from the university. We're going to discuss the details of this with Chris Lea of VandySports.com. A lot of particulars to get into and what it means for the athletic program and the fan base for the Commodores. That's next on OutKick 360. OutKick 360 rolls on. The big news locally in the state of Tennessee was right here in Nashville this week for the SEC and for the Vanderbilt Commodores. $300 million announcement where they're going to upgrade facilities in the athletic program. It is something that we have talked about over the course of the decade that we've been together as a show. Whenever we've had this discussion, we've gone to Chris Lea of VandySports.com. Chris, it wasn't too long ago, and Chris joins us now, by the way. Thank you for the time today, Chris. It wasn't too long ago that we were wondering if Vandy could get $300. Now they have $300 million. What was your reaction to the announcement earlier this week?
Well, I wasn't surprised given I'd been hearing it for a while, but at the same time, it's Vanderbilt, right? And if any school reserves the right for takebacks, it's Vanderbilt. And so, and let's also point out that they've got to ground break and do all these things. And so everything's not in the barn yet, but a great first step. And certainly the school has moved a long way to taking off one of the huge criticisms leveled towards it. And I think a lot of people were very encouraged, and I think for good reason.
So, Chris, obviously this is something that takes a while to get going and get this level of donation. I know John Ingram was the first donation, $10 million. To your knowledge, was this something that was in the works for a while? And was this something that Candace Story Lee could tell every prospective football coach when they interviewed that this was going to happen?
Yeah, it's been in the works for a while. I started to hear about this time last year that they were looking at committing around $300 million. But again, Vandy being Vandy, you just don't know what to believe and what to trust, right? But to the coaching element of things, Clark Lea, I'm told, had some things written in his contract, some assurances. What they were specifically, I don't know. But Clark Lea is a guy who is going to have some options, and certainly had options last year and would have had options next year. And so I don't think it's a job you take. You may not know exactly what's going to happen, but I think you try to get an idea of what's going to happen. And from what I hear, he did that. And I guess we're now seeing maybe a little bit of what he knew.
So it certainly seems like, as part of this, Vanderbilt athletics has unlocked, finally, or broken through the wall that separated university donors from athletic donors. Do you believe that's the case? And how was this finally accomplished when it seemed to be such a high and impenetrable wall and such a problem?
That seems to be the case. I think the biggest first step was, I'm going to say last May, I was told that Daniel Diermeyer had made the decision to move on from Susie Stallcup, who was their head of development. And they had raised a lot of money under her watch, but I think she had alienated some people. And she was a person that Malcolm Turner, I think, had a lot of conflict with, is he wanted to raise money and the school did the school's things to wall off donors. I think getting her out of the way was a major step, but is also a signal maybe to the rest of the school and to people that we're not going to allow athletics to continue to have the difficulties it's had in the past. And so I think that's a thing where getting rid of her a year ago laid the groundwork for a lot of what you saw today, probably.
So, Chris, when you look at what they're doing in this plan, and I love the fact that they came right out and said, this is going to impact football and basketball the most, the sports that drive the most revenue, the sports that, let's face it, SEC fans care about the most, probably in that order for most schools. But the football stadium, you know, there's one little bit of disappointment, and I know Paul talked about this also, but one little bit of disappointment from fans was that there's not going to be a new stadium, but they are going to do things to help the current Vanderbilt stadium. From what you've heard about this, will Vanderbilt fans be pleased with what's going to happen to Vanderbilt Stadium with improvements that are planned?
Well, I think those are last priority, right? They have made it clear for a while that the things we do are going to benefit our players first. And frankly, if they start winning games, right, I think fans would rather go to watch a good team or a great team in an okay stadium than watch a bad team in a great stadium. And I'm not defending them there, but I think that's where they put their priorities. I think you will see that stadium change in a few ways. I think you'll see fewer people there. I suspect that what they're going to do is they will put a football operations center in the closed-in zone. The word I've heard is they'll knock out around 10,000 seats. There'll probably be some club seating over there. I think eventually they will rip out some of the bleachers and go chairbacks in some areas. I don't know if that's going to be in this first phase of things in the next year or if that's going to be a couple of years down the road. People I've talked to tend to think more the latter. And I've heard eventually that they may put in a suite that would be on the baseball stadium side that would be opposite the press box up there. And I think it would allow people to watch both baseball and football games, which would kind of be a neat touch. Again, I think that's something down the road, and they may not do it. But I think their priority was to hit performance things like weight rooms and the performance center and stuff like that will benefit the players before it will be the fans. But I think you'll see some things sprinkled in for the fans too. I know they've talked about better concessions things. I think you'll eventually see like a food court type deal where maybe you don't see the concession stands where they are now. I think it'll be maybe a more centralized location, which I think would be good. I think it might alleviate some of your crowd flow issues. This is a little speculative, but these are things that people have told me at various times. So I think that's what you're going to see. I think that the player stuff will take first priority, but I wouldn't be surprised if you saw some things sprinkled in for fans in the coming years along those lines.
Chris Lee is with VandySports.com, and he joins us on OutKick 360. Chris, let's look at this from a different angle. We have known for years that there has been a separation of power, a split in opinion with the academics and the athletic programs. Are there those at Vanderbilt that are upset with Diermeier for making this commitment to athletics?
Oh, I mean, I'm sure there are. I think that's one reason you didn't see it before now. I think that anytime you start spending a lot of money on sports, and look, $300 million anywhere for anything is a lot of money, right? So I think the thing, to me, it's not just the fact that they are committing this money towards athletics. It's also a sign that the chancellor's got the guts to take that crowd on. And to me, that's got significance beyond just what they're about to do, because I think that tells you have a chancellor who might be willing to go to bat for sports when other things come down the line. And I think one thing that they need to do is to get priority registration for their football players and their athletes. I mean, they are against the same constraints that the rest of the student body is. And so you see kids missing practice and taking labs at crazy times. And I think it just exhausts a lot of the players. So that's one thing I'm looking at too, is a thing of significance, is I think that when it comes to a time to where the chancellor has a chance to do other things to help sports, he's already shown that he's willing to go out on a limb for their programs. And I think that's a big thing too.
Is it your understanding that the football building is going to be where one of the football practice fields currently is? And do you have any inclination as to where they're going to squeeze the basketball building given the limited footprint there?
What I think will happen, and they kind of reserve their right to commit to things, and they said some things may change. But when I've talked to people, what I hear that will probably happen is they will tear out that closed-in zone, and they'll put the performance center there for football. I think they will roof in or close in or build an indoor facility somewhere where one of the two practice fields is now for football. And for basketball, I think what they will do is they will tear down the Palmer Fieldhouse, which is, you are sitting in the closed end zone. If you look diagonally, kind of to your right, beyond the scoreboard, beyond the grassy end zone, kind of diagonally to the right there, that's where that building sits. My understanding is that's probably where the basketball court will go, the practice facility or the operations center, as they call it. To me, that's a little squeezed, but I'm sure they've thought about it, and that's where people that I have spoken to expect that to go.
So, Chris, from a football perspective, we like what Clark Lea has done so far, and we can go back. James Franklin, while James Franklin could get along with anyone, and he worked hard to build relationships and have the marketing angle for it, wasn't necessarily knowledgeable of Vanderbilt and the way things are done at Vanderbilt when he came in. Derek Mason, while we like Derek Mason, never really jived with the Vanderbilt community. Clark Lea seems like the perfect fit for the Vanderbilt fan, those that didn't graduate from university, but definitely the Vanderbilt alum, and he seems to have generated some excitement with past players and alumni. Do you see him right now as a really good fit for what that program needs right now?
Yeah, I think you made really good observations there. I think he's a great fit. At first, I wasn't sure if he should have been the guy. I wasn't against the idea, but they had some decent candidates, and he's never been a head coach, and to me that matters. But everyone I have talked to has been really impressed with him. And look, let's be clear. there's a long way to go from impressing people in private conversations to winning football games. And he may have a lot of things in place that are good ideas, and you can still lose at Vanderbilt for reasons we all know. But having said that, he's been in school there. He knows the value of a degree. He knows what he's up against. He lived here. When I have dealt with him and talked to people who've dealt with him, he just seems like a guy who does not leave a lot of stuff to chance, and is also probably more realistic than James in terms of where he can win battles and how to win battles. And I think the point that you started your question with was a good one. I think that Derek didn't try to fight those battles and just did not want to rock the boat. I think that James didn't care about rocking the boat and didn't care about who he ticked off. I think Clark will be kind of an in-between. And while at times I tend to lean towards more the Franklin approach, that you got so little done there that you had to use the hammer when you got it. I think that with the chancellor they have in place and what you've seen from him already, I think he's already laid the groundwork that you can get some things done. And I think especially in light of that, I think Clark Lea is a really good fit for all the reasons you mentioned.
And when you look at football recruiting so far under Clark Lea, Langston Patterson from CPA, that's a big get for the program. What they're trying to do locally, bringing in Barton Simmons, I thought was really clever. Vanderbilt, my neck of the woods, they offered 2 kids from Mount Juliet yesterday. It seems like they're really putting a focus on the mid-state with recruiting. Has that been your impression?
Yeah, it has been mine. We heard a lot of things like there were certain schools that they just didn't seem to recruit very hard. NBA was one. And my goodness, if there's ever a place where you should be able to convince a football player that Vanderbilt is the place for you, it's NBA. Clark Lea graduated there. But yeah, I think you will see them work smart, work hard. And I thought the Patterson commitment was big. I mean, who knows? A lot of kids in that range, that mid to high 3-star range, they're about 50-50. A lot of times they hit and a lot of times they don't. But I thought that was significant because we all know the negative publicity around that program. It was deserved. We saw how bad they were last year. I think when you can come in that quickly and convince a kid who has a lot of great options that soon, who has seen all the warts, to pick your school, to me, that's a pretty good harbinger for how he'll recruit.
So Jerry Stackhouse, now going into year 3, as he transitions with this program, I guess my question is, Chris, is there any type of transition with Jerry Stackhouse? Is he changing anything up? Is he reevaluating what he's done so far? Or is he going by the same things he told Joe Rexrode in that piece, that he's figured it all out in college basketball, no one should be questioning him, and his record, while I think it speaks for itself in wins and losses, doesn't really matter because he's the one who knows how to handle this? Or do you expect some adjustment with that program going into this pivotal year 3?
Oh, I think there's going to be more adjustment than he let on. I thought that story was an awful look for him. Again, I think you make a good point. The record is what it is, and it speaks for itself. He's got to recruit better. I think that starts with having assistants who are better connected in the recruiting world. I think you'll see him make 1 change and maybe 2 to his staff to address that. You know, I think that there's still a lot of things wrong with his approach, but I think changing that would help. And I think the other thing, they're on a kid out of Texas named Lee Dort, it appears. He's the 26th ranked player in this class by Rivals. He's a big man. They need great players, and they need big men for sure. I think if that's a deal he can close for 2022, along with some staff changes, I've not been very optimistic about his chances to get it done, just because I don't think his setup's been good. I don't think his work ethic has been what you need it to be in this league to win. But I think if he makes the changes and he can get a lead Dort, then all of a sudden you have to start reevaluating a little bit where the trajectory is. But he's got to get players, and he's got to get them soon. And I'm really watching that one for sure.
Chris Lee of VandySports.com joins us on the Tennessee Power Hour of OutKick 360. Chris, a new venture for you and several writers at Southeastern14.com. A lot of SEC fans viewing and listening right now. And you've got the top 3 sports covered, including football, but also baseball and basketball at Southeastern14.com. Tell us about it.
Yes, it is a site and a podcast that we launched in February, so it's still a work in progress, but we have decided look, everybody loves SEC football, and we do too, and it's a great product, and we're going to cover the heck out of it in the fall. But I think they also have a really underrated product in basketball, and I think their baseball is even better than their football is. And I think the season is going to be just crazy good across the league in baseball, and you've seen some good results early. But our philosophy is that the league deserves to be covered more than just football, and we're going to cover baseball and basketball and football too, the way that everybody else covers football. And I think if you like the SEC and you want to go to a place where we keep you updated on what's going on at the 14 schools, where you don't have to do a lot of searching elsewhere, and we'll give you opinions, we'll tell you what's going on. We do a podcast 5 days a week. I think if you're a general SEC fan, and especially in those two other sports that I think are very undercovered, I think you'll really like what we're going to have for people.
Southeastern14.com, the website, vandysports.com, where you can read and hear Chris's work. Chris, thank you as always for the time. Always insightful, and it's just good to be able to finally discuss some positive steps for this Vanderbilt program, top to bottom, with the money invested from the top down.
Yeah, it's nice to see a new day over there, and I appreciate you guys having me on.
Thanks.
You got it.
Thanks,
Chris Lee. You can see the Twitter account there, Chris Lee of vandysports.com.
He does great work covering that program.
He does.
One of our favorites.
And props to him and others on the Southeastern14.com. I'm looking forward to
I just
that.
bookmarked it.
Absolutely. The Preds last night, they win their 6th straight. That's the longest win streak currently going in the NHL. They do it again.
And once again, you know what else I did again?
Did you ride it?
I went money line
There
on the
you go.
Preds, and I went under 5.5. I took Paul's advice. It was 5.5, and I won both of those bets on the Preds last
I
night.
laid off. I didn't want to push my luck.
You didn't chase.
I didn't continue to chase it. I thought once was enough. You know what I'd started doing? I started my baseball betting.
Oh, nice.
Got to jump on
Futures bet or?
that. What did I make a futures bet on lately? I made a futures bet on Aaron Judge, who sucks, to lead the AL in home runs. But I also
Not
made
just
a bet
sucks,
on
he's
the
a
Yankees.
loser.
Yankees
That's right.
opening
Also a
day.
loser. We found that
I'm
out
counting
today.
on no
So,
soft tissue injury on this one.
Preds right
He
now,
took up
though,
yoga.
not losers.
No.
6 straight, 8 out of 9. At what point, gentlemen, do we start to say, why can't the Preds just be one of these miraculous teams in the NHL that we see
Turns
every
around.
year
Gets
that
hot.
gets hot at the right time? And we saw St. Louis fire a coach and go from last to Stanley Cup just a couple years ago, right? I mean, I'm thinking this is a team that could do nothing right just a month and a half ago, right? And now they can't lose.
To me, the big question, and I've been harping on this, is once you get to the playoffs, it's about John Hines and other coaches around the league and their staffs as to how they scout and prepare for teams they haven't seen all season long while they've played in a limited division, and the playoff structure and all of that. And the playoffs have a whole nother level of intrigue once you start seeing, as unintriguing as the season has been because of these constant games against the same teams, playoffs could be better than ever because you're seeing teams that you had not seen all year long. So a switch could flip for me in terms of the intrigue on the matchup front. I'm very curious, and I think it puts a lot of pressure on Hines and his coaches in terms of how they scout this in advance of potential matchups.
Only 4 teams in the NHL have won more than 6 consecutive games this year. The highest total right now is 9 on the season. The Preds have now won 6 straight. 2 other teams have done 7 straight before losing a game. So what we're seeing is one of the better streaks of the entire season, not just some fluke where a team caught fire and, oh, this is just what NHL teams do. This is a signal that they're playing among the best hockey, if not the best hockey right now in the entire league.
I've got an idea.
They're not going to keep this level up, but if they could get 75% of this the rest of the way and just make sure that you're in the playoffs and be one of those hot teams come playoff time, who knows what can happen? Puck luck. We've heard a lot about puck luck,
Yes,
right? Maybe puck luck will be in their favor now.
I've got an idea, and I'm wondering if maybe the 3 of us should head over there.
Let's go.
Head over
Go to the Stone.
To
the Stone? What's the capacity now at the Stone?
I don't know.
We had our fantasy football winners last night in the Two Rivers Sports Suite for winning,
Which was
the
reduced
league, and
from
it was
what to
from
what?
14 to 8. So I know there's only 8 people allowed in the suite, and apparently they're very big on even in the
Amongst those-
suites. They'll have someone monitoring your mask wearing.
Oh, really?
Even when you're taking a drink, you have to be eating or drinking something.
Well, I know 3 guys that didn't make the cut from 14.
Pat Forty loves that, by the
8.
way. I mean, he's a huge fan of Bridgestone Arena because of that mask policy.
I know 3 guys very well who didn't make the cut from 14 to 8.
Yeah. Well, I
1,
don't.
2, 3.
I don't think we should have been. I mean, if there's only 8 people, I have no problem.
I agree. But
not
if it was
making the cut.
14, we should have been right at the front of the
for
line.
sure. Yes.
Well, and then
I mean,
Jakob and
we
Lance.
provided the damn buck.
I mean, we have 8 on the staff right now. We could fill one of these suites right now.
Yeah.
Jakob's,
So Jakob and Lance had not seen the commercial we were discussing yesterday. The
Scoop, there it is.
Scoop, there it is. Thank you. Yes, I couldn't remember that. I was thinking of
With the brother or the boyfriend.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. But
Clearly the dad.
have they been to a Preds game? Do we think they've been to a Preds game?
I think the only time that
If they don't watch
Jakob-
TV, do they go to a hockey game?
I think the only time that Jakob stepped foot in Bridgestone Arena was the same night I was there when Tool was
Death
in town.
metal concert.
I bet he was at the Tool
I'm going
concert.
to differ with you. I think they've both
Minus
been
Nels.
invited as a guest, and they've taken it like the vast majority of Nashville takes it. Sorry, diehard Preds fans, as a social event. They've had
That's
many,
a compliment. I mean,
many
it's a place
beers,
to be.
Many beers. They're socially active fellows, and they're in the middle of social events.
You know, we could ask them. Have you guys ever attended a Preds game? And if not, would you like to attend one with us?
I'd love to attend a game. Have not.
Okay.
Okay, Jakob
That
has
answers
not.
one of them.
I would also love to. I've attended one NHL game, San Jose Sharks, and I fell asleep.
So you didn't. So you
Here
went to.
or at the Shark Tank?
Back in San Jose.
Wow. So
Fell asleep.
neither have been to a Predators game
Let's make
at
this
Bridgestone
happen.
Arena.
Let's make this happen. It's like our
Absolutely.
sons.
We'd love to go.
It's like Liam McHugh with supple faces. We're going to take them to their first hockey game. Maybe if you're good, we'll get you some cotton candy.
Supple bearded
Over
faces.
there also. Shockingly, I bet that I've been to some of the same concerts they've been to. Well, just Smashing Pumpkins, 9 Inch Nails,
Marilyn Manson.
Tool. Well, Marilyn Manson was at Ascend Amphitheater. I've not seen him at Bridgestone Arena. They're saying no to all of these.
I saw Iron Maiden there.
Okay, was not at that one.
Foo Fighters.
Missed that one.
Foo Fighters
I wish
headlining
I missed
Bonnaroo
that.
this year in
I wish I
September.
missed that one. It was too harsh for me.
Too harsh, too loud.
Yeah, you know, I struggled with that Foo Fighters.
Yeah, Foo Fighters. Too harsh for Paul.
Tuharski.
Paul Tuharski for the Foo Fighters there. Hit us up on Twitter at OutKick360. We're going to run through some of the YouTube comments as well when we come back. We haven't checked in on that with the shoes. I wonder if David is there.
He's building our desk. He's very busy.
Also, what political story do you want us to talk about? That seems to be a recurring theme on YouTube
David
and on Twitter.
It's spilled into Twitter. Today.
David is now he's now critiquing my shirt. So we will read this when we come back
he's
for
rough. No
is
holds
it
barred.
David or David? We'll find
Let's
out.
call him David.
On this
David.
Holy Week, thank God for David and the material that he's provided.
Our king on OutKick 360.
He ain't my king. How did I meet Hutton? Well, Titans Radio used to send out a swarm of interns to training camp. Most of them were completely inconsequential. They just leaned in on interviews and stole quotes. But Hutton was a little bit more substantive. And, he wasn't scared of me. All of them were scared of me. So we struck up a little bit of a friendship, and then we had sex. No, then, he was at the radio station all the time, and I was working more and more at the radio station, and we came to figure someday we're going to have a radio show together. I thought it'd be with Joey Kent.
You can find OutKick 360 content 24/7 wherever you download your podcasts, including Apple Podcasts. We hope you'll search out OutKick 360 and like, subscribe, and give us a rating. 5-star rating as you scroll to the bottom. You can write a review as well and check out all of the content. We're going to post full shows immediately following every show, plus interviews, conversation, and exclusive content, and more. Just search out OutKick 360 on Apple Podcasts.
How I met David Reed. He was around the radio station all the time, and I thought he was a great guy. We wind up in conversations and stuff. And then I won a suite to Nashville Predators game, and Hutton and Withrow were both doing high school basketball championship games, and I needed somebody who was a co-representative of the station. Reed wasn't our producer yet, but I invited him, and I thought, this guy plays softball, he'll come out and drink some beers with us. Found out that night Reed doesn't drink. But turns out his fiance, the lovely Lindsay, was in the box, so I was really Cupid in terms of getting them together. And we've grown to be great friends. Couldn't be more thrilled that he's at OutKick 360 with us. One of the greatest guys you'll ever meet, and so skilled at what he does behind the scenes. He's a bigger part of the show than anybody knows.
OutKick 360 on the OutKick Network. OutKick the show with Clay Travis coming up later this afternoon on the OutKick channel. If you're watching on YouTube, we hope you'll subscribe and get the alerts, much like David has done on a daily basis.
Hit the
one of
thumbs
our
up.
most frequent visitors in the chat.
Top complaint, perhaps.
This chat has become one of the top chats in the country. I mean, we need to spend more time talking about these chats.
Very divisive.
Incredible.
Very, very divisive.
Like this country. It's really just emblematic of the country right now. Very divisive.
It's Twitter and Parler coming together on
That's right,
YouTube.
yes.
Is what this is. And you can see by the comment from our king, David, on this Holy Week, who critiqued Chad's shoes yesterday and today.
I'm doomed tomorrow.
Critiques my shirt with the different neck sizes. He doesn't need to wrap his 17-inch neck with a 14-inch collar.
Let's get a close-up of his coat.
Does it look really? Maybe it's because I had to button this button for the mic today. But this isn't a collar that I would normally button at the top anyway for a tie. You know, I don't have the dad bod like David to do that. I would actually wear a more a dress shirt with
I
a
don't
suit
know.
instead of
There's
this.
zero problems with the size of your shirt. I don't know. This is for a second straight day. It's like he's choosing a really bad hill to die on.
Yeah.
These shoes are outstanding. There's no.
I mean,
denying
again,
it.
like we're
and
being
this shirt is the
critiqued by
perfect size.
we're
There's
being
nothing wrong with
critiqued
it.
by
An
Achilles, the
invisible-
god himself.
Yeah, an
Yes.
invisible man.
So, I mean, I do want to take every word to heart because this guy is no doubt a clean bill of health who holds down multiple jobs and is not just sitting in front of his computer all day eating Cheetos.
We appreciate you being in on the chat and watching the show, but
Right.
David, do us a favor, and just like we're having prospective interns DM us for this summer, DM us a picture of yourself. Any picture.
Oh, yeah.
Pick your favorite
We'll
outfit.
spend a
It could
segment
be- it
breaking
could
Live
be
in our
any
DMs
picture.
with a photo.
Please, put it back on me, the camera.
Full body shot.
Any picture.
Full body shot.
Pick a shirt that you feel looks best on you, size-wise, everything, pants. Favorite shoes, since you
Yeah,
hate
please,
mine.
pants.
The best outfit you have, send us that picture. What we'll do is we'll take that picture, and we're going to put it up on this screen that you're watching right now on YouTube, and then we will critique you on that day, and it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So turnabout is fair play. Please DM us a picture of yourself. I feel like the last two
He's a
shows were
tailor.
really fun.
Picture of Brad
yeah.
Pitt coming. That's
Yeah.
David's.
Oh, this is Clive Owen.
No,
Sorry.
I picture, what's the Project Runway guy? Tim Gunn, is that his name?
Yeah.
I picture that as David. He walks around with, a measuring tape around his neck, wanting to tailor someone a new suit on a daily
Yeah,
basis.
collars have varying heights, and we have varying shirts with varying collars. I think you could say, and some are higher, some are lower, some are medium.
By the way, Jakob back there had
He's been
never
giggling
heard of the
today.
Scoop There It Is commercial. No knowledge of it.
Never been to a Preds
Never
game.
been to a Preds game. But Hutton said, "Who's the guy on Project Runway?" And he said, "Oh, it's Tim Gunn." Tim Gunn, yep, Tim Gunn.
He's been a giggler.
Very
today.
familiar with his work.
Jakob's been very giggly today.
Yeah.
Which
He snorted a
I don't
couple
know.
times.
Either this means that we're very
And
funny
not bath
today.
salts, just actually out of laughter.
Yeah, well, let's check in with Jakob. Have we been particularly funny today, or are you particularly ticklish?
A couple times with the turn of phrase here and there.
Yeah.
Praise.
Oh, he's singling me out. Thank you. Tomorrow, David will be singling me out. He's working his way across the room, so I'm going to be
You better be
particularly.
on your game tomorrow. You better be Tim
well
Gunn tomorrow.
tailored, because we know where he'll go if he can't find fault with the wardrobe. Right here,
That's where they all
right
go.
there. And let me tell you, I'm going to go proactive here, David. I know I'm bald. Gotcha.
Do we think David is bald or long hair, short
Very
hair?
fat. He's very
Very
fat.
know,
fat.
I
See,
have no-
I picture him as thin.
No,
I have no
he's not thin.
expectation of David. It's weird. Normally
He's
you
a
can
slob.
get like this is the guy's background. This is where he's from. This is what he probably does for a living. This is what he looks like. I'm pretty good at guessing.
No, I got
when I
it.
have an idea, I have no image in my
I got
head
it.
of David.
Let me tell you.
Go ahead.
He's a slob. He wears hoodies. He doesn't. He's got
TNA.
doesn't shower very often. Wrestling hoodies.
This is Mark Howard.
No. Very greasy hair. He's parted way over here. Too far over. He's got it way over.
I love how you have it down
Yeah.
to the hair part.
The jeans, they really need a belt. He went size 45, and he really
45, by the way, a very difficult size
size
to
to
find.
get, maybe 46.
Well, he's a tailor.
Yeah,
That's David Reed.
but he's got a lot of that plumber's thing. You know,
really
when he
gotta go
crouches
casual male
down on
XL
a rare
for that.
occasion,
Yeah.
when he drops his sandwich and he needs to pick it up. There's a rare occasion where he
Drops
bends
his
over,
sandwich.
and that crack is on display for anybody who's around. His mother often says, "Pull his pants up."
Oh, so he's young.
Does he
No.
live with his mother? Does he live with his mother?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, of course. Yeah. I got you down, David.
David.
Can't wait to get this picture of David.
He ain't so.
That's not happening.
got no
He's going to
courage.
Google, copy an image, Brad Pitt, and send it to us
Exactly.
on the YouTube chat.
David,
David
I
Reed did
suggest that you
defend
lack
us, by the
courage.
way, in the chat as OutKick. If I can pull that up, I don't know if we have that or not, but I can read it.
Please do.
Reed responded, David responded to David and said,
Triple David.
"Do you own a men's clothing store? You seem overly concerned over what other grown men are wearing. Surely you have a professional interest in OutKick 360's fashion."
Look, we're looking for any endorsements we can find. I mean, if this guy
the French
owns
shop.
some sort of men's, if this
the
guy owns a
men's
French
French
shop. Look, we have, if you look close in our open, we've got Demetria Kaladimos in there. She's got a connection to the French shop. Maybe this guy is Casual Male XL. Maybe he's another.
We don't need XL.
What is it?
I don't.
There's the other stores, boutique places in Nashville. If you own one of these places, by all means, please let us know.
What's the one that our friend Doug Matthews has a relationship with over
McPherson's.
McPherson's.
I was going to say McPherson's, but I thought that was wrong. And Hutton had it the whole time. Here's how out of touch I am with certain stories that are out there. These are some of their quests. Like, I love when we become a jukebox and people are telling us
Play
what
the
to
hits.
talk about. Tom, to start the show, said, "Hey, any word on the," and I don't even know how to say this name, Gaetz, Gaetz story? On the
politics.
Gaetz story?
Politics.
Just looking for some good, honest discussion about this situation.
Yeah, that's not in our wheelhouse, Chief. We're not going there.
I say that to know I don't even know who this person is. I've not seen this story. I've been
We're
watching the tournament.
Watching the Elite Eight.
I've been researching
Yeah.
sports.
What teams he play for?
I don't know if this makes me someone
plays for the red
that's
team.
irresponsible to not know. Who is Gates?
He plays for the red team.
Oh, okay. But the guy sending us the tweet or Gates?
No, Gates.
Okay. Is it Gates?
Getz, I think.
Getz. Okay. Yep. Again, this is how little I know about this story. I had no idea, but I find it funny that he was requesting we give honest discussion about it. I don't know.
Facing some accusations.
Here's what we're going to do with every story. Give you honest discussion. We're not going to be phony. We're not going to pretend to be something that we're not. So whatever we talk about, it's going to be honest. Let's go ahead and put that prereq out there for everything we do on this show.
Yep.
If the allegations are true, they might infuriate you the way that the Mia Farrow, Woody Allen thing I'm continuing to watch. I don't know why I'm watching it. It infuriates me so much. But this guy, Woody Allen, I mean, he set things up like with plots in his movies and stuff to cover his tracks and stuff. There's a Washington Post reporter in there who went to Princeton, where Woody Allen like donated all of his like notes and stuff.
Yeah.
And this guy went and looked at scripts and short stories and stuff that Woody Allen never executed. And like in every one of them, there's a 17-year-old girl involved with the older man. He's got this undercurrent running in every single thing he writes, like to normalize it so that his real life actions are covered, like because he's got it covered.
The latest accusations and discussion in sports would be with Deshaun Watson.
Yep.
His attorney, Rusty Hardin, is scheduled to release or has just released 18 massage therapists who support Deshaun Watson in comments. So that's coming out through his attorney. But again, that's not addressing the number that are filing civil lawsuits.
These were his follow-up
against-
massages. He just had a massage where he
Yeah.
did something, and then not needing any relief of that sort, he had a secondary massage.
That will
That
be
was later that day. The morning massage. This is the afternoon masseuse.
The one
Yeah,
thing
he's-
I find incredibly incriminating, I sent you guys the link. I imagine you read Jenny Vrentis'
Yeah.
article in SI. Now, here's a masseuse, remaining anonymous, but with an accusation, independent of any of these lawyers.
not involved in any civil case.
Not involved. And SI, is airtight. In the reporting, they're cross-checking it with people this masseuse talked to right after the event. The masseuse that sent her Deshaun Watson as a client who she spoke to immediately. This is a very incriminating story because it's detached. It's
Yeah.
a third party that's detached from either lawyer, completely separate of everything. I found it exceptionally incriminating because it's totally separate of everything, and it did not paint him in a good light at all.
I just think you get so many of these stories, and the Jenny Vrentis piece was good. And that story is very similar to every other story that's out there. That this is not a coincidence.
It's a trend.
This is it's gotten past just the point of trend now. This is the MO of Deshaun Watson, according to all of these accusers, and the stories are just so eerily similar, even down to how he reaches out to them and contacts them on Instagram. So, not looking good for Deshaun Watson.
Not at all.
Maybe some clothing that David would approve of is OutKick 360 gear.
No,
And we have the 40% off through today. Merch Madness is the code. OutKick 360 gear, but also all OutKick gear. OutKick.com. Click on the shop tab at the top of the screen. You'll see everything available. 40% off through today when you use the code Merch Madness. Use that code. The items arrive quickly,
Finished a month strong.
and you get everything 40% off with the code Merch Madness. Again, do that today at OutKick.com. Also coming up on the site, Clay Travis with OutKick the Show. You can follow us on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook. Check out the podcast as well, which is available wherever you download podcasts, and we hope you'll rate and subscribe to that as well. Thanks for joining us on what was day 13?
Day 13,
Do it again tomorrow.
day 14.
Day 14 tomorrow. Join us then right here on OutKick 360.
Please, don't block the box, but do lock the locks. See ya.